Ahoy! Hello, it's Lady Flo. Bonne noche, everyone out there. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. Now, if you're not ready for something with sad gravity or, negative, something that's going to impact your day at the moment and you can't handle it, I would recommend not watching this video. We are going to be discussing the Gypsy Rose crime scene and the crime scene photos. We're not going to get into anything graphic today, but we are going to be talking about the loss of Dee Dee Claudine Blanchard and what was in her room and some items in the kitchen. If this is going to damper your energy at the moment and it's too much, watch it another day. But if you feel prepared, let's continue. So going over the Gypsy Rose crime scene she created. Nick was involved, but as we look over the case file, Gypsy created the whole scene, the act, she calls it. And remember, they were going to do the act 2 or the second act. And I believe, if I'm correct, that Lifetime was going to be doing that. And they scratched the name and put that on hold. Thank goodness. The second act is very looming and suggests a second time of her doing something horrific and using an autistic male. So we have the act, and we're going to be looking at the kitchen in the act crime scene. Dee Dee Claudine Blanchard passed away June 9th to 10th, 2015. And in her kitchen, there was a calendar hung up. Now, I think I've only seen one other creator talking about this, and her name is Candace Starr. She pointed out the calendar on the kitchen area and showed how each of the days were X'd out leading up to the day of the crime, but no other information was written on the calendar. We all may keep calendars, but typically calendars are used to put down events. We know Gypsy is a good planner, and they went on vacation. They had a lot of events up in the coming weeks before the crime, and none of those are on the calendar. All we see are just X's. Like they would have a day and it would be X'd out, and then it would just be the next day an X, an X, an X. Now, this makes sense if maybe Dee did it and it was her way of keeping track of what day it was. But why wouldn't she use her watch or use her cell phone? Right? They had cell phones and they had technology. Another reason might be that Gypsy was using this calendar as like a countdown to the day of the crime. This feels more plausible. As we know, Gypsy planned this a year ahead when she started asking Nick to do it. And then 9 months before the crime, we see her reaching out to Aaliyah. And we see this influence of like the baby birth throughout the planning of the crime. But today we're not talking about that. We're talking about the kitchen. So there's this calendar with weird X marks. And there's no X marks on the day of the crime, June 9th. And there's none after either. It's almost like it just vanishes and there's no X's after that. So we have this kitchen area and it's a mess. My perspective, I see that Gypsy was moving out. It looks like someone who's moving where everything's taken out of its place and put into piles. Maybe a pile for goodwill, maybe a pile for storage, maybe a pile for keeping, piles for giving away. It looked like a lot of piles, and a lot of costumes were in bags. Clothing was in bags. Her stuffed animals were in piles. The couch was covered. The sofa, the chair, every surface was covered, almost like they were packing and hadn't been home and maybe had come back from traveling. And when you come back from a vacation, how you have a lot of stuff to put away? It kind of looked like that. And we know they had been traveling a lot. And then when Dee Dee had come back, she had had kidney stones and gout and cancer. So she was not able to do any cleaning. The exterior of the home was manicured to perfection. The grass was manicured to perfection. The porch area was clean. The driveway was clean. The trash bins were clean. So what was up with the interior? Well, my perspective, my opinion is Gypsy was, in fact, moving out. And in my opinion, she had been kicked out. And Gypsy had told a lot of people that she was being kicked out. And we see this in emails between Nick and other friends, Gypsy and other friends, and even people that were talking to Dee. There's this like underlying idea that Gypsy was being kicked out. But we don't know for how long before the crime. Now, in this kitchen area, keep that in mind as we're looking at this mess that Gypsy may have been in the middle of moving. It may not have always looked like this. And that kind of makes more sense, knowing that Dee Dee was always very clean. Her clothing always looked very clean. And their hair and everything looked very clean. Like if you just ignore the dental hygiene from Gypsy, like their wheelchairs, their cars, everything looked clean. And even their shed was clean, right? The shed in the driveway was not full of a ton of stuff like their house was. And typically people who are like hoarding, like they want to call Dee Dee a hoarder. Why wasn't the shed full? Like the one in the driveway. It was like literally almost spotless. Aside from the bed, a weird toy, and then a box of diapers, etc. Now they had 3 other sheds outside to the left. So now we're looking at this kitchen. It's messy, but possibly Gypsy was moving. And we see something in the kitchen. And I just want to point out the sink area. Go ahead and look at it. We see a lot of dishes. Look at the drying rack. Now there's 2 trays there. We have a large pink one and a blue one. Now looking at the size of that, I mean, what do you guys think? I want to estimate it's maybe like 12, 14, 16 inches, maybe 20 inches, like long and wide. And it looks about 1 inch or 2 inches deep. So they look fairly large, right? Well, when we move from the kitchen to Dee Dee's room, we find Dee Dee's nightstand had Gypsy's wallet left behind. She had taken her cards with her, but she had left the pink wallet on the dresser. Maybe Gypsy thought, the cops were too stupid to figure out these items she left behind, or maybe she was forgetful with everything happening and she didn't think about it, or maybe she was trying to stage a kidnapping. That might be plausible as well, but she leaves this wallet on the nightstand. By the wallet, there are 2 receipts face up where all the information is on the receipt. They're not crumpled and they're laying flat. Now, because of this, when I was going through crime scene photos, I could see that there was a Dollar Tree receipt and a Walmart receipt. Now, the date on the Dollar Tree receipt is June 9th. And from what I can see, the Walmart receipt looks like it was also either for June 9th or June 8th because they have a very similar shape, an 8 and a 9. So I can't really tell for sure because it is a little blurry, but it's either one of those 2 dates. And it's a Walmart receipt. Now, the trays in the kitchen will come into play when we look over these receipts. Now, if any of you have access to a better software, let me know if you can help. When I look at this crime scene photo on the nightstand and I try to zoom in on these 2 receipts, I'm able to see that they were purchased June 9th. That's what it looks like. And I can see the items purchased and the dollar amount. However, the time is kind of blurry because it's at the bottom. I don't have the software capable to zoom in and see what time these were purchased, but the Dollar Tree one is very clear they were purchased on the 9th. Now, typically in cases and in crimes, police and detectives will focus on the 12 and 24 hours leading up to a crime itself. Gypsy's case is so rare and original. Cops and detectives focused more on the long term leading up to the crime on Facebook messaging, but they did not, aside from taking a photo, they did not investigate this. They did not investigate the hours leading up to the crime on what Gypsy did, only on what Nick did. This is kind of peculiar, but knowing they had a confession, they also had one Nick glove at Gypsy's and one Nick glove at Nick's house. They really did not need to investigate further. And being a small town and having a small budget, I mean, it makes sense. So is it weird? Yes, but knowing they didn't want to spend a lot of money and they already had what they needed for a conviction and to close the case, it's very typical, right, of a small town. So let's just compare this to normal crime cases, though, and let's pretend that we're looking at this case from a perspective of what Gypsy did all day on the 9th and the hours leading up to the crime for Gypsy and what she did that day. we can tell that she went to the dollar store on the 9th. Now, when I look at the time, it looks like it's PM, afternoon, but I cannot see the exact time. If you have software again, let me know if you can help. So we can narrow this down further, but it looks like it was the afternoon of the 9th. Afternoon, basically. The Dollar Tree receipt, Gypsy only bought 2 items, 2 types of items. She walks in and, typically people will go in a dollar store and they'll buy what they need, but they might buy a candy bear. They might buy a drink. They might buy the hair ties they need, or since they're going to be traveling, a travel kit or a shower cap, stuff like that. But Gyp bought 2 items. She bought a tray and she bought a food container. Now, on the receipt, she bought 2 of each. So she bought 2 plastic trays and 2 large food containers. The 2 trays were large as well. So imagine clear containers with lids. She got 2 of those for food. And then she got 2 large party trays. One was pink and one was blue. Now, Gypsy does not like to clean. She does not do chores. She did not clean the house when she left. It was not organized, clearly. She did not do the rest of the dishes either. So, knowing Gypsy went out of her way to go to the store, she would have had to get a taxi or have someone drive her. Possibly it was Dee. She would have had to go to the dollar store for these 2 items, come back, not buy anything else at the dollar store, and then use them for something, and then wash them, and then put them on the drying rack. This is where gravity hits. And this is where it's sad and horrifying, heartbreaking to realize that something happened with those trays related to Dee passing away. We do not know what exactly. We also do not know if Dee was with Gypsy. However, there have been no reports that a cashier or any passerbys saw Gypsy with her mom. Nobody saw a disabled girl in a wheelchair being pushed by Dee buying these items at the dollar store. No one saw that. So it's more likely that Gypsy went by herself and wore a wig, dressed in a way that no one would notice unless they were asked, and got these 2 items and brought them back. But more importantly, what did she use them for? Now, obviously, there were 2 trays and 2 food containers. That would be around, $4 and something cents at the Dollar Tree, the dollar store. Now, she moves on to Walmart after this. She goes to Walmart. It's actually, I don't know the exact time, so it could have been before Dollar Tree or after, but she does it that day. Let me correct that. So she goes the same day. And she goes to Walmart. Now, again, you could say Dee was with her, possibly, on the 9th, but the items Gypsy bought don't seem typical for Gypsy's normal behavior day to day. It seems odd, out of place from what her norm is and what her baseline is. And Dee probably would not have supported what Gypsy bought. Gypsy's items were very odd and rare. Now, remember what she did at the dollar store. She was very specific with what she bought. She was on a mission. When she went to Walmart, it was the same. So these items are very relevant to what happened on the day of June 9th. When she went to Walmart, she bought 2 neck fans, 2 bottles of drinking alcohol, and dog treats. She also returned a padlock. And then there were some random children toys included. We don't have the time of this, but we know that Gypsy was, again, most likely not with Dee. Since we don't have any cashiers coming out, Gypsy's story is very on the media right now, and we haven't heard any cashiers come out and be like, oh yeah, I saw Dee pushing Gypsy at Walmart, and I remember they were buying some weird things, like dog treats and alcohol and neck fans and returning a padlock. No one has said that. Again, it's more likely that Dee was not there and Gypsy went by herself, had a taxi or had someone, a friend or something, go with her. Detectives were told not to continue investigating. So aside from taking a photo of the receipt, we have no video footage of Walmart or the dollar store. All we have are the fact that these items were purchased by Gypsy. They were used, I guess, because we don't see dog treats on the crime scene. We do not see neck fans, and we do not see bottles of alcohol. So somehow these items that were purchased on June 9th were used and then put in the trash bin. And remember, Gypsy rolled the trash bin out right before her and Nick left. There were 2 trash bins. She rolled one out to the curb, and it was taken out like an hour or 2 later by the trash company, emptied. And the other bin was left at the house, empty, but with 1 glove inside. Again, this is where it gets really sad, realizing that Gypsy bought intentionally neck fans, drinking alcohol, dog treats, children's toys, and those were not found anywhere in the crime scene photos. Where did all of this go? What did Gypsy use it for? And did she, in fact, throw all of this away in the bin? And that's why we see none of this in the crime scene photos. We don't see empty alcohol bottles. In fact, we don't see alcohol anywhere in the crime scene photos. Let's theorize a little bit. If it was the hottest month in June is kind of the middle of summer for that area, and it's hot, it's humid, it's also kind of rainy and drizzly, sporadically raining outside, why would you need 2 neck fans? Gypsy did not bring them with her when she left with Nick. They did not have them at the hotel or in their bags, and we do not see them in crime scenes photos. So why did Gypsy buy these on the day of June 9th? What did she use them for? Well, let's theorize that perhaps she would have been outside. Well, would she have been doing yard work? No. Would she have been cleaning out the sheds? No. The sheds were practically empty, at least the one in the driveway was. And the other sheds to the left of the house, there were 3 of them. There was that gray Star Wars shed that T had fixed up for her. There was a greenhouse to the left. We do not have photos of the inside of them. We don't. But we know they were there. Now, logically, if you have neck fans, you would have to be outside where there's no AC. As we know, the AC was working fine at Dee Dee's house. In fact, Gypsy had turned the AC on when she left, and it was very cold in there, right? So the AC was working, and Gyp was not going on a hike anywhere. So these neck fans are quite significant. Let me know what you think happened, but in my opinion, it's more likely that Gypsy was doing something outside where she was covered from the rain, but it was hot enough that she needed a neck fan so she wouldn't overheat. It being June in the middle of summer. Now, June 9th specifically. Again, the alcohol bottles. Why 2? There were 2 neck fans, 2 alcohol bottles. Was that Nick with her? Was he drinking alcohol with her? Did he use a neck fan? Or was it someone else? And why doggy treats? They did not have a dog. They had a cat. So that's odd. Let's go back to the kitchen area where those trays are. Those were the 2 trays that Gypsy bought at the dollar store. Is it possible she was using it to, hold her? I don't know. What was she? We know she shaved. We know she did her nails. Is it possible she used those trays to put her hands under when she was painting her nails and painting her mom's nails? I mean, it's possible. But then why buy such a large tray? And then why wash them and put them on the sink? It's also possible that maybe she was, eating and they used the trays to put the food on. Or maybe she put dog treats on those trays to feed the cat. I mean, it's what was all that for? Again, we don't know. These questions were never asked. No one has ever asked Gypsy what those trays were used for. No one has ever asked Nick what those trays were used for. And we do not have the video footage. All we have are the receipts. But the bigger question remains. Gypsy left these receipts face up. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the minute I buy something, that receipt is crumpled and put in my bag, At best, if it's an expensive item or it's something I'm not sure about, like I'm going to return, that receipt gets put in a drawer at my house, but it's still crumpled slightly. These receipts were almost in immaculate condition and they were face up, laying there, almost as if taunting the police to look at the footage. Almost taunting them like, yeah, go ahead and figure out what I did the hours before the crime. Go ahead and try. Or maybe she put them there realizing like she was being forgetful. Maybe she was in the rush of the moment. But she did clean up a lot of items, so why leave those there? Another reason might be, theorizing here. Those two receipts were there because Gyp thought, oh, these people are stupid. They're never going to figure out what happened. Like, I feel bold enough to leave these here and I'm not worried at all. Like, no sweat. I'm not worried. Now, she wheels that bin with all the things that we talked about, the neck fans, the alcohol, the laptops, all those things that she needed to get rid of. She rolled them out in the trash bin and put them on the curb because it was trash day and the trash was coming. How weird is it that trash day was coming on June 9th? Actually, it was June 9th into the 10th. So it was June 10th, the morning of June 10th, the trash was coming to collect the trash. So the trash bin was pulled and remember their driveway came out and then curved outside to the street. So it was actually a really long walk to take the trash bins out, which meant that Gypsy would have had to pull those bins herself since Dee was not there, wheel them out, and nobody saw her doing that. But again, it was really early. It's possible. It was early in the morning. But that one trash bin gets emptied out. We will never find what was in there. But we do know a lot of evidence that was tied to Gypsy was thrown away. And the only evidence found in the trash bin, here's the kicker, was an empty bin with one glove and one wipe. As if she put the very bare minimum evidence needed to frame Nick. It's just like, here's a glove. I'm going to leave it here in this bin where I know cops are going to look in the trash. And I'm going to mail the other one to Nick's house. This is where we're like, okay, she created this crime scene. She threw away the evidence. He trusted her. She framed him and he's in prison for life. Now, I put a video out earlier this morning with all the information needed for the crime, like regarding the crime sentencing for Nicholas Godejohn, with him having a life sentence and being charged with a first-degree charge. We're trying to get that modified to where it's only a second degree and it's a lesser sentence. And this is basically all we're doing is we're mailing letters to Tyler, which is his attorney, so that he can build a case for clemency, which is really just to lower Nick's sentence and have the governor sign it off. And this is Nick's only chance. And I think they have 1 week left. So if you have not done that yet, and you feel comfortable, of course, go for that. Now, remember, these facts we're talking about in this video, this is not something you can put in the letters. This is something that, unfortunately, we really can't do anything about. This is information that detectives would normally have looked at. The receipts on the nightstand right there by Dee's unfortunately passed away body. That obviously in a normal case, this would have been the first thing cops would have looked at is, oh gosh, there's 2 receipts right by Dee and these items were all bought right before the crime happened. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? It's like common sense that would have happened. But detectives, once they got a confession from Gypsy and Nick and they had the gloves and they had a weapon, and remember, Gypsy mailed the glove with the weapon. They were in the same envelope. It was like cops didn't have to do any work. And Gypsy set all this up on purpose. She probably did research and knew that if cops have a confession and have a weapon and have evidence, they're not going to investigate a case further if it's a small enough town. And the town Nicholas Godejohn was in, it was really small, guys, really small. Gypsy knew all this in advance, in my opinion. Now, I think a lot of YouTube creators are now catching on to what I've kind of been saying is that Gypsy is smart. I know she appeared from the beginning to not be such a smart cookie, but she does that intentionally so that people underestimate her. And like we see right now happening, like Toddy Wants Get made a whole video about how their team is basically working to try to sabotage Nick and get him to say things when he's upset that make him look like he's like that all the time. And, it's very sad, but that's kind of the chess play that you see. And this is what I've been trying to tell creators, that Gypsy is actually very intelligent. If she had her IQ tested, she would be higher than average. And I know that's hard to imagine, but it is, in fact, true. And, maybe one day that will be talked about mainstream in the media, but she is actually quite intelligent. So she planned all of this out, but none of this was researched. All we have are the Dollar Tree receipts, the Walmart receipts that were laid face up, not even face down, face up, right by Dee Dee's body and right by the Barney doll. Knowing Gyp's ego, I think it's safe to assume that she really felt the cops were too dumb to put 2 and 2 together. She probably wasn't worried at all and thought, as long as they have the weapon and they have these 2 gloves from both locations and they're both used by Nick and they have his DNA on it, the cops are not even going to look at these receipts. And it's kind of like, why bother throwing them away? And actually, let's leave them here and see how smart they are. Let's see if they can figure it out. And it's almost like taunting, So this is kind of what we have to observe looking at the crime scene photos. It's not just what is talked about and is there, but what is there that's not being talked about. And this is where, a lot of YouTube creators are now looking, and this is where the story is going to, the picture of the story is going to get big. And rather than looking through a small narrative and a small perspective, by looking at the whole picture like it should have done in the beginning or would have done in a bigger city, the story will come out. The truth will come out. What is hidden will be revealed. Let me know what you guys think. And I'm sorry that we have to talk about this. I know it's sad. I know it's heartbreaking. But these observations must be communicated with the community so that these questions and answers can be found to what we see in the crime scene photos. Reviewing all of this is really sad, and I know that your spirits have probably been a little disheartened by thinking about all of this, but if you want to take an action, turn that into something positive and something you can do. If you look at all this and you're like, you feel like, oh, wow, like this is not right, I want to do something. People are sending letters for Nicholas Godejohn. We're sending them to Tyler, who is then going to send them to the governor with his case for Nicholas Godejohn. And it's basically just requesting that Nick have a smaller sentence, whether that's 50 years or 40 years, 30 years, 20, or even 10 more years. They're just trying to get him a lower sentence than life. So, is he going to get out right after that? No, but it's likely that they might reduce the sentence from being life to maybe being 20 years, which would mean Nick might only have 10 or 12 more years left, which would be amazing. Thank you for watching my video, for sharing your time with me. I know time is valuable. Toddy says that a lot, and I agree. Time is valuable, and it means a lot that you're here. We'll see you later. Ciao.